Welcome back. We turn back to politics. Donald Trump has now secured an endorsement from half of all congressional Republicans. With new support from Maryland Congressman Andy Harris, Trump now has the backing of at least 114 Republican members of the House, along with 25 GOP senators. Trump's one Texas Senator Ted Cruz is the latest member of the upper chamber to endorse the former president. Cruz, who announced his endorsement after Trump's win earlier this week in Iowa, said the GOP primary is, quote, over. Joining us now, special correspondent at Vanity Fair and host of the Fast Politics podcast, Molly Jong-Fast. Molly, morning. So let's talk a little bit about these Republicans backing Trump. You know, it seems to be more evidence that his grip on the party is firm, and also more evidence that even some of his previous opponents are seeing reality. They look at the inevitable results. Trump's going to be the nominee again.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us who cover this have thought this for a while. And I think it's an easy case of like, it's not that the primary is over, it's that there never was a primary, right? I mean, you had most people running as these sort of faint mimeographs of Donald Trump, right? You had DeSantis as Trump without the charisma. He never took off, right? And then you had Nikki Haley was sort of a Hail Mary pass at the last minute where the donor classes were like, oh my God, I can't believe we're going to nominate Trump again. Can we possibly get Nikki Haley? But even Nikki Haley, all of these people are so tainted by Trump, right? Nikki Haley worked in the Trump administration. There's talk that she's now auditioning for VP again. You know, there's a lot of pushback, I think, on the Trump side. But, you know, that's a possibility. No one ever offered, besides Chris Christie, who was never polling at more than about 2%, you know, 2, 4, 5%. No one ever offered something that wasn't, or Asa Hutchinson, that wasn't just Trumpism light.
Right. So let's talk Haley. You know, she is down about 10 or so points in New Hampshire. There is, I suppose, a bank shot path where if she were to somehow pull off this upset and win in New Hampshire, there's a month between New Hampshire and South Carolina. Trump's way ahead in the polls in South Carolina. But maybe if Trump was dealt with a defeat, he'd be rattled. Who knows how he would implode over that month. But for order for that path to happen, Haley has to win. And it doesn't seem like she's taking the steps to win. The campaign schedule has been light. She's not really going on the attack. What's your take on what she's doing?
Well, you and I are doing like the donor math, right? Like every Republican donor sitting around going like, how can we push her over the top? And I just don't, she, you know, look, going against Trump is really scary, right? Like we see E. Jean Carroll doing that now. She testified she gets a ton of abuse online. This is a scary thing. And even Nikki Haley, you know, she's a Republican too, you have to imagine that this is an incredibly stressful thing, right? Like all these Republican senators refused to stand up against him. Here's this woman candidate who worked for him. I think it's a very tough thing for her. And then also, the problem is, even if she were to win every primary, which so far she has not won any, right? She came in second in Iowa. She came in third in Iowa. Yeah, he would need to go away. And I'm not convinced that he stops running, even if he lost every primary.
Yeah, your latest piece in Vanity Fair, you make that point, that it's a fantasy to think that Donald Trump will just go away. We also don't have any reason to think he would accept any sort of loss.
Right.
So you know, there's a chance here we're going to wake up Wednesday morning. Trump wins New Hampshire. The race is over. So how do you then forecast what the next few weeks or months would look like?
Well, I don't know. And remember, Trump is doing this really unprecedented thing where he's showing up at all his criminal trials, all his civil trials. You know, he was spent this week in court. You know, we have never had a presidential candidate spend his time in court, right? And I'm not sure how great that juxtaposition is. You know, you have Biden doing infrastructure, might be boring, but it's very presidential, versus Donald Trump, you know, truth socialing about E. Jean Carroll. I'm not sure that's the contrast you want.
Yeah, and lastly and briefly, just want to get your take also on what we were talking about with Joyce a minute ago. Trump's incendiary claim that a president should have total immunity even for things that cross the line, which opens the door to not only potentially him confessing what he's done before, but the possibility he could order up a political assassination in the future. Do you think this is an issue that could resonate with some voters?
I mean, it resonated with the judges, right? The judges were like, you could have SEAL Team 6, you know. I mean, again, it's a very scary idea of having a president who is completely lawless, who is not held in the bounds that the rest of us are, I don't know that that's a winning argument for getting back in office. And again, I think this is the problem with Trump's grip on the party, is that there really is no one to say, like, perhaps this is not the greatest plan to win re-election.
It might scare off just enough independent voters. Now it's up to the Democrats to turn out their own base. Great analysis, as always, from special correspondent at Vanity Fair and host of the Fast Politics podcast, Molly Jong. Fast Molly, thank you for joining us this morning. And